Cheers for that.
All right. So Van, my good off-grid friend here, he's coming down and decided to visit me and see what I've been doing on the Vardo here. He's got us a fire started here in this fire pit. We got some brats and some beer, and we're just going to sit out here. It's a beautiful fall day. We just recently had a storm here yesterday. Dumped a lot of rain on us, didn't it? His lane is still a lot of dirt, and so he was worried that the mud and the rain was going to make it difficult for him to get out, but he managed to get out okay.
Yeah, I've got 2.5 miles of dirt road.
And it's that slick red sand and mud that turns into a slippery mess. But he managed to get out and come on down and visit me. We kind of got into the smoke here. And he started up a fire. He brought this wood down to me the other day. And so we're going to have a fire and sit out here and enjoy a little camping weather. It's deer season here. Yeah. And so he's dressed up in his orange, and people are going out now, setting up their campgrounds. We have a lot of deer hunting in this area. Beautiful area for that. We recently, in fact, it's still going on. We had a big fire up in this area called the Yellow Lake Fire. And it's so far, last I read it, it burned 33,000 acres up here in the mountains. But because we had this rainstorm, and they said we got about 6 inches up in the mountains, it looks like maybe they got that fire somewhat suppressed, so maybe it's not spreading as much. So that's been a big concern in the area, and we had a lot of smoke and stuff building up in the areas, making it kind of difficult to breathe and stuff. So hopefully that fire has been under control. So yeah, we're just kind of sitting out and enjoying this fall weather. Enjoying a beer and cooking some brats and shooting the breeze.
Beautiful morning. Well, afternoon now.
Afternoon.
Beautiful day. You know, when you get those real crisp, cool temperatures in the morning, and the sun comes out, and it's still cool out, you know, we're wearing sweaters, but it's just so much better than the 105 degrees we were having in the summertime. It was
a hot summer.
That was really hot.
We did. A couple of days, few days got up into the hundreds.
Yeah.
But overall, it's been a decent year. Yeah, a decent year. I know I've managed to get quite a few projects done. Van has been coming down and helping me with projects. He helped me with my roof on my cabin.
That was the first one.
Yeah, that was the first project we done. I had like 5 or 6 projects I wanted to get done this year. He helped me put the shingles back on the roof because the ice had grabbed on it and pulled some of my shingles loose. And so he helped me with that. And then he brought over some recycled boards left over from his projects, and we did the floor in my shed, and we rebuilt that. And so, you know, getting projects done, he's helped me a lot here this year. And so, you know, we've become good friends and neighbors, and kind of help each other out with different projects. I've been helping him with some solar projects and things that he's doing up at his place. He's getting some batteries and controllers and things like that. And he's going to get set up so that he has his power system, because we're moving into winter. Yeah, it won't be too long now, probably, you know, a couple of months, but we're probably going to be heading into a winter, and they're talking about this being a El Nino winter, which means it might be more wet than normal. So we could have a lot of snow. It's hard to tell, but we could have a lot of snow this winter. At least 3 feet of snow in a winter time. It was really unusual last year. I wouldn't expect that it's going to be that way this year. I think we're going to have more snow. We'll have to see whether it's as much as a normal year, or if we're going to be lower than what we normally get. We'll have to see.
You know, one of the cool things I was going to tell you, so I don't know if a lot of you read the comments that Lamar and I do on his recent videos since I came into the picture, so to speak, but I order a lot based on what he recommends. 2 shipments I have coming in that I'm going to be picking up on Monday, actually, is that ventless...
The ventless propane heater?
The wall heater that I'm going to put in my little shed that I'm building into a cabin, as well as the Renogy 40 amp charge controller for solar to hook up to the battery and inverter that Lamar gave me. So he's been a super help to me as well. and his knowledge. I'm going to ask him to come up and help me hook it up, and maybe we can do
we'll
a video of that.
Get that and do a video of that and show people how to hook up a simple propane, a simple solar electric system.
Yeah.
It doesn't take much, for survival systems. It doesn't take a whole lot.
Yeah, and I already have a system set up, and it's with the EcoFlow products. But this one is based on the basics.
Yeah.
A
This will be a
lithium
battery
PO4
system.
battery with an inverter and a charge controller and the solar panels I already have. And I'm going to have them come up and
We'll get
help me hook it up.
Get it hooked up,
we
and
can do a
that
video
way
on
you'll
that.
have that system for a backup. And I like the component systems, because if something breaks down, you can go and get a replacement component. Power stations are really nice,
Yeah,
but if they go out, if something goes out in them, you're screwed. You're not going to be able to fix them yourselves. Most of them, you can't even get into them. You can't get parts for them. And so if you're relying on your power system like we do here, you're relying on it for survival. You want a system that you can work on yourself, a do-it-yourself system. If a battery goes out or an inverter or a controller or something, you can find them locally, hopefully. You can replace those components so you still have power and be able to survive. Whereas if you're relying on a more expensive power station and it goes out, you may be without power completely.
Yeah.
And I tell them about your phone experience with the Verizon.
Oh, yeah. What was that, midweek?
Mm-hmm.
So out here, we're 10, 12 miles away from the town. And it's not a city, it's just a town.
Small town.
Yeah. But we do have cell towers.
Mm-hmm.
They're approximately 10 miles apart from each other. We have one that's near town and then one that's about 6 miles from where we are. And they have multiple companies on these towers: Verizon, T-Mobile, AT&T, that kind of thing. So I still work. I'm semi-retired, but I do still work. My company is off of Verizon. My personal phone is T-Mobile. Anyway, about midweek, I reached out to Lamar and said, hey, my work phone doesn't work at all. Like, I have no signal whatsoever, but here I am on my personal phone on T-Mobile. And we kind of went back and forth for a couple hours trying to figure things out. And I was on with Verizon online because I have Wi-Fi that I create through a thing called MoFi. But anyway, I had no ability to take work calls. I was shut down. And
We think that might have been because of this big fire I was talking about here.
Could have been.
Because our cell phone towers from here go along the mountain ridge, and probably was involved maybe in that big Yellow Lake fire. Maybe took out some of the cell phone towers of Verizon. You go on with it.
yeah, it was crazy because it was almost 24 hours of, if I only had Verizon,
Wouldn't have had any communications at all.
nothing. Yeah, there was nothing. And it made Lamar and I think, goodness, we should really look into, at least as far as us being fairly close by, tap into that old analog system, CB radio kind of thing, just to be able to communicate in case things happened.
Yeah, if something happened to one of us, the other person we could at least contact and say that there's an emergency, we need some help.
Yeah, because literally it was a great example. If the cell towers go down, nobody's going to communicate with anybody.
But then that brought up the bigger subject of how dependent we have become on technology.
Yeah.
And I'm there. Everybody uses internet and cell phone anymore for almost all of your communications. Most people's power is still coming from the grid. If something happens, that whether it was a natural disaster, man-made disaster, a war, anything like that,
EMP.
could knock out these systems. And how dependent we are, how much you panic. I mean, think about it. If you was to just lose your cell phone service or not be able to contact
And
the
it was
internet,
just like that. It was just like that.
how much of a panic and stress that would cause in your lives, because we've become so dependent on technology and so dependent on the grid and so dependent on the systems to take care of us. And so it's kind of nice. That's kind of where we're at right here. We're kind of showing that you can get by. You can cook over an open fire.
Mm-hmm.
You could live in a Vardo camper if you needed to. and you can survive with just a small power system. If you need power at all, you can survive with a small power system. A few solar panels and a battery will get you by for supplying power for lights, small appliances to recharge things and stuff like that. But it is, we're very dependent on technology, and if something goes down, you better have the equipment and supplies that you can survive at least for, I'd say, a week or two until the systems go back up, and possibly longer, because you just never know what's going to happen. Look at the hurricanes that have wiped out Florida, North Carolina. Those people are now, they've people who lost everything, lost their homes, but also the ones who didn't still lost power. They had no power, they had no internet, they had no cell phones. A lot of them are still in that situation. Whereas if they had some basic systems, a solar power system, some supplies to survive, survival supplies, be able to cook over an open fire or have a wood stove to keep heat on in your house, those sorts of things I think are really becoming more necessity for an emergency system, because if you're dependent and relying on the grid power, you're relying on the technology for cell phones, internet, that sort of stuff, and those things go out, you and your family are really in a bad situation. You're in a life or death type of situation if you can't get some services to your place, if you can't get emergency help, if you can't get out of your place to get to a hospital to take somebody who's hurt or something like that. You should be having the training. You should try to get training in first aid and CPR. I'm a trained EMT. I did that for a long time, so I can take care of injuries and wounds and stuff like that if they're for at least and to keep somebody alive, hopefully, until we can get them to emergency services. Those are things that I really think that everybody should start considering, that you want to be involved in and that you want to learn, so that you can survive, whether it be a man-made disaster, a natural disaster, whatever it is, at least for enough time that you can survive and get your family safe until services are restored.
And like Lamar was talking about, the fact that my work phone went down was a very harsh reminder of it happens that fast. Mm-hmm. You literally never know. And luckily, my personal phone worked just fine, and I was able to communicate with my neighbor. But had everything gone down, I'm thankful I have survival skills. Like, I would have been able to survive. It was more annoying at the particular moment than anything, and it was stressful. But I'm a high recommender of also knowing how to do things if you don't have technology.
Yeah, you better know how to start a fire.
Can you start a fire? Can you pitch a tent? Do you know how to dress properly in layers? There's so many things that a lot of folks don't know.
Yeah, they've never.
It really made us kind of think about things.
Who've never done that sort of thing before, but even a lot of country folk we're city folk that moved out into the country that don't have those skills, sort of thing. But yeah, I think you need to really kind of think in terms of survival situations, even if it's just a short term. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a long term. You're going to, Third World War sort of situation. It can be a short-term situation like a natural disaster, the grid going down, something like that can really cause a lot of stress and could actually harm the people that are involved if you're not prepared for that sort of thing. So anyway, that's
like those folks in Nashville, North Carolina right now. Mm-hmm. A perfect example. They're mountain folks.
Yeah.
But it's the mountain folks that are affected the most.
They were cut off.
Yeah. They were cut off. They have
Bridges
no communications.
Went out, no roads.
Can't get in there. Anywhere. Helicopters have to come into them. And they have no power, no phones, no internet. They have nothing. Mm-hmm. They went right back to pioneer life, so to speak. But most of them didn't have the skills. People were dying. And thankfully, a lot of folks that were very helpful came in with helicopters and are providing them food and water.
Supplies and sort of stuff like that. But you can't necessarily count on that.
Exactly.
And those were areas where the rest of the states weren't affected. But what if this was a disaster that affected a lot more of the area wherever you live, whether it's America or someplace else. And it takes out the national grid sort of system. You know, in that sort of situation, there, don't expect help. You know, FEMA and the federals can only do so much. They can't spread out and take care of everybody everywhere. You're going to have to take care of yourselves until, you know, the situation clears. Ooh, okay, guys, so we're going to fix us up some lunch here. I'm going to throw some brats on the stove. We can get this open. I'm going to lift that lid up to let you flow. Gloves here. Get these onto this. Woo. Smoky.
Well, smoking and cooking.
Nice.
Double cheddar Johnsonvilles. These are gonna be tasty.
All right, we're gonna have those and some beer. Oh, all right.
That's the benefit of having a pair of leather gloves.
So we were just talking about big disasters that can happen, like the North Carolina and Florida hurricanes that can wipe out huge areas and cause a lot of problems. But the disasters that people are most likely to experience in your life, which we were just talking about, is a personal disaster.
Oh.
And a personal disaster can happen many different causes. It might be a result of a divorce, losing a job or a career that you've had for many years, disability or something like that sets you back in your life, and so you're no longer able to support yourself the way that you used to. And a lot of people that have followed my channel over the years know that I started my channel back around 2007, 2008, when the housing market collapsed. And a lot of people lost their homes. A lot of people lost their jobs. So a lot of people lost their homes and they lost their jobs. And that's when I started my channel helping people to build small cabins and develop homesteads, raise their own food, raising chickens and small animals and things like that. Because there was a financial need. People were really struggling at that time. And you've went through that in your life. I went through that in my life, where we had to start off basically with nothing. And it's real difficult and really stressful. And you have to decide if you want to really get back into the rat race and if you want to live that kind of life again, because there's always that risk that could happen again. You could go through another situation, a personal disaster or catastrophe in your own life that sets you back. But if you've got a simple house that's paid for, whether it be a small cabin or a Vardo or a shed that's been converted to a cabin, like Van is doing here, that's paid for, then you have that security. You have a place to live, to take care of yourself and your families. And, if you're raising, some small livestock, whether you're raising chickens, goats, maybe got a milk cow or something like that, if you can hunt and fish, you can keep your family fed, you've got a roof over your head, you're not going to starve, and you're not going to freeze to death in the winter, that makes a big difference. That's security. And that's really what I've tried to impress on people in my videos over this many years, is to have security of having a home that's paid for, that having your land that's paid for, and being able to take care and survive, so that in whether it's a natural disaster, a man-made disaster, or a personal disaster, that you can thrive and survive through those situations. And then any money that you make, if you invest it back in your homestead, that's investing back in your own personal security.
Exactly.
You can extend and make your life even better. Okay, You can build up your homestead so that you have more supplies, whether it's creating a wood stock and pile so that you can have a constant source of fuel for cooking or taking care of your family and keeping yourselves warm in winter, that sort of thing. And, developing a solar power system so that you have your own power supply so that you're not relying on the grid system. Those are things that I've been talking about a lot. That's what Van is developing here on his homestead. So that if something happens down the road, and we all hope it doesn't happen, but if something happens down the road, you've got all the supplies that you need and all the equipment and the basic skills, and it takes skills, so that you can survive and take care of yourselves in whatever comes down the road. And I think that's the security that I've been trying to impress on people for all these years, is that you want that type of security, that fallback, so that if something happens, you can take care of yourself. Then if you want to invest in something else and develop a side stream of income, like Van has his business that he's still working on. He's not quite retired yet, but he's getting to that point. I retired about 11 years ago now, but I still keep a side stream of income, and that's really important because you really can't survive in this economy, especially in the U.S., without some type of income. You're going to need to pay property taxes. You're going to still need to pay insurance on your vehicles. You're still going to need gas and fuels and stuff like that for your vehicles and stuff like that. So you're going to need some income. But you can greatly reduce that if you don't have any house payments, if you don't have any utility bills, if you're raising at least some portion of your food on your own homestead, your amount that you need of money is very minimal. You don't need a lot. It's just enough to pay off the bills that you still might have for property taxes, insurance, things like that you might need. And you can survive quite well off a much smaller income. Now, another thing that Van and I have done here is we've also done a lot of bartering. And this is really important to develop. And he was just talking about it's so nice to have a friend. And this is back when I was growing up, it was mostly family. Everybody around was either family or related or friends, and you shared among yourself. If somebody had a tractor and you didn't have a tractor, you would be able to go and borrow their tractor to do some work on your property. You may trade them some work, maybe a pile of wood or something like that, in exchange for that sort of stuff. Van and I have done that a lot here. We've exchanged. I've exchanged some solar equipment and stuff that he needed to get started out. He's exchanged work for me on my homestead here. That's a barter system. Doesn't rely on any money, okay? It's a completely separate system. It was around long before there was any financial system in this country where money was required, and you had to rely on the government to give you that money and print that money. And that money comes with a debt. You need to understand that there's always a debt that comes with that money if you're involved in that system. But if you're involved in a barter system where you can trade, whether it's your services, and this is one of the things I've talked about, developing the skills so that you have some type of a hobby, a skill, or something like that is tradable. And Van here, he does HVAC. He has a lot of experience in that sort of stuff. He knows construction, and so he could trade his skills if he wanted to go and develop a small business or trade his skills to other people in order to bring in enough income that he can pay for the things that he needs money for, or get supplies, or get equipment and things like that he needs. That's an important skill set, and I want to impress on people that you need to have some type of hobby or skill set that you can trade in exchange for what other stuff that you may not produce on your own homesteads, because you're not going to produce everything. This clothing that we're wearing here, it's store-bought clothing. We're not making our own clothing, okay? So you're going to have to buy stuff like that. There's equipment and supplies that you're going to need. You're still going to need money for. So develop a side stream of income is what I want to get to. Go ahead and add your thoughts on this.
So, as I was saying, about 4 years ago, I had lost my job, lost my vehicle, all that. It was a very devastating time. But through being confident enough to reach out to others for help, I did find help, got another job. At that time, I had $1.61 to my name, literally $1.61. In just a few years' time, I was able to save up enough money to buy my own property. And part of the reason of why I did that is because I realized I am way too dependent on society and, you know, how things are going, rent costs, housing costs, all that. And I realized if I bought my own land, then I have control. And if I don't mortgage it, then I own it.
Right.
Day one, I own that land. And when I did that, I bought the land, but I couldn't afford to build a home. Keep in mind, I only had $1.61 a few years before. But I had enough money to buy a canvas tent, a good high quality canvas tent. And if y'all don't know like who pioneers are or whatever, these are the folks that traveled from the east coast of the USA to the west coast, and they were in wagons powered by horses, and they lived in canvas tents and all that. So I thought, you know what, if they could do it, I can do it. And I had survival skills from the way that I grew up, so I felt very confident. And I did it. I literally lived for 1 full year in a canvas tent. Now I'm converting a shed that I bought into a little tiny cabin. So I'm upgrading as I can afford it. And I don't have a lot of money, I don't make a lot of money, but as I can afford it, I make little improvements.
I think that's important that people understand that you don't have to do it all at once. I did not develop my place. In fact, the people who follow my channel know that I started out in a camp trailer, a little tiny camp trailer, and was living in that. And I lived in that for 2 years while I was working a part-time job for Walmart of all places, while I was saving money. And I saved up $2,000 in that time. In that time, I used graph paper and I drew out dozens of different cabin plans of things that I might be able to build. And then I went and checked prices and found out how much material was going to cost. A lot cheaper back then than it is now. Material prices have really went up. However, back then I was able to afford a 14 by 14 cabin that I could build myself for $2,000. That wasn't completed inside or anything. That was just the outside frame and dried in, but reasonable enough for me to live in so I could get out of this camp trailer, because our winters here are really harsh. They're really harsh. If you try and live in a tent or a camp trailer for too long in these winters, you're going to really struggle, and people have died trying to do that in this area, trying to live in those situations. So I wanted to get out, and he's trying to get into his own little cabin here before this winter. We're going to get him into that because our winters are really hard here, and it's really expensive if you have to buy fuel and propane and things like that to try and survive. So I built my cabin, cost $2,000, and that's how I got started. And then with each paycheck, I would put so much aside to develop my cabin, put more into it, more into my homestead. I raised chickens, I had other animals, rabbits and things like that I developed so that I would reduce the amount of money that I needed to spend on food. I had no house payments, no utility bills. So then I was able to quit working for Walmart, thank God, and started my own pest control business. And so that became my main source of income. And because I didn't have any boss leaning over me, I didn't have anybody tell me when I had to work or what I needed to do, I was able to run a very good business, local business, made good money, and I put that money, instead of investing it in a bigger and more expensive house, I put it into my property, into my development of my systems, so that I would always be sustainable. Because I always had it in the back of my mind, this could happen again, all right? And also, I'm getting older. I'm 60 years old now. You're 50.
I'm 51.
51. You reach a certain point in your life where you realize that you're not going to be able to work for the rest of your life, okay? You could become disabled really easy. And those things can really set you back And if you don't have a house that's paid for and property that's paid for, how are you going to keep paying those bills if you become disabled, if you become sick, even for a while, if you lose your job, if the economy collapses, whether it's your local economy or the national economy? Those sorts of things can really set you back and make you become homeless.
Yeah.
Okay, and both of us experience that.
Yep.
So that I want to impress on you that, you know, you need to be prepared so that if something like that happens, you and your family, now you don't have to live in a small cabin or a tent or a shed like we do. You could build a bigger house, okay, but make sure that it's affordable and that you can pay it off as soon as possible. Don't get caught up in a bunch of debt and a mortgage and things like that, because if something happens, and it can happen fast, it can happen overnight, you never know when it's going to happen, you can end up completely in a situation where you can't afford your bills, where you can't afford your house payment, you can't afford rent, you're not going to be able to buy food for your family.
And then what are you going to do?
Yeah, then what do you do? But if you own a small place, you can always develop it. You can make it bigger. You can add on to it. You can add all kinds of things. And we're not going without stuff here. He has internet and cell phone. I have internet and cell phone. I run a business online. We watch movies. We do all the sorts of stuff. But we can also, because now that we have no house payments, no utility bills, we can put money into a vacation if we wanted to. Okay, we can go travel now if we want to. It's not like we're living hand to mouth every day. We can put money into savings. If we want to invest in the stock market, we could. I don't necessarily recommend that for most people. I think it's a risky gamble. But if you wanted to, you could, because you don't have these other bills. You're sustainable. And that's the big factor that I want to re-impress on people, is being sustainable means that you have everything that you need to survive. Everything else, that's an extra. If you want to do it, go ahead and do it. If you want to take the long vacations and travel and trips, you want to invest in the stock market, you want whatever it is that you want to do. Maybe you got big hobbies and things that you really want to invest in equipment. You want to have that sort of stuff. That's fine. But make sure that you have your house paid for. Make sure that you have your land paid for. Make sure that you have your own energy supply. If you do that, then if anything happens along the way, which is really likely, it happens to almost everybody at some point, you're still going to be sustainable. And that's the main point I think that we're getting from this video. And I think I hope it impresses on you that it is possible. You can do it. A whole lot of people have done it now and are living off-grid lives and becoming very sustainable, and many of them very successful.
Just really quickly, so coming from where I was 4 years ago, where I'm at now, imagine like where we live, if you were to get like a little one-bedroom apartment as an example, that's $1,200 a month. Where we're at. If you can even find it. I don't spend that because I was able to save up money and have my own land, so I don't pay that.
That's $1,200 in your pocket you can use
every
for something
month.
else. Yeah.
So I save up money, and each time I'm able to save up money, which is every month or two, I'll go grab supplies and lumber and,
That's also savings for retirement.
Yeah.
If something happens and you lose your job, now you've got savings, which is what I did. You've got savings for your retirement, savings if something happens, you become disabled, savings for taking care of extra medical bills, all that sort of stuff. Instead of paying it into a rent or a house payment, you're just putting that away.
And you're broke.
You're putting that away now for a change in life. A retirement, a vacation, taking care of your kids, helping them out is a big important factor too. I have been able to help my own kids and even my grandson out because I was able to live very efficiently without a lot of extra expenses. And so that's very important. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. Have a great day. Do check in with Van's channel. Tell him what your channel is.
Sundance Serenity Hideaway.
Go check in with his channel because he's in the development of his homestead up there. Always stop by. You're welcome here. Leave a like and a comment in the comments. Have a great day, folks.